Your habits are your fate. And what do I mean by this? Your habits are basically what you are destined to become. And whatever your habits are, whether they're good or they're bad, your habits are the blueprint of your life. Basically, every action that you're repeating daily, what does this do? It literally becomes who you are. It becomes your character. And it basically shapes your life. And becomes your reality. Literally the smallest of things, your habits shape it. And of course, the biggest of things. And the most important of things in your life. Your habits shape literally how you think, how you move, how you speak, and of course, how you live. So they say that you're not gonna necessarily rise to the level of what your goals are. You'll fall to what you tolerate and what you're okay with, and whatever you tolerate is actually based upon the level of whatever like systems or habits that you have in your life. It's basically going to be based upon that. And many of you probably have heard of that quote that a lot of people say. One of those millionaire people, right? He says, "Show me your friends, and I'll show you your future." And this is technically true. If you are around a bunch of degenerates, you'll probably be. If you're around five degenerate friends, and you'll probably be the sixth one. This is actually very true. If you're around five ambitious men, you'll probably be the sixth one. It's just the nature of conformity, as it goes. That's how it is. But this is even more so true for your habits. Because you're probably not around your friends 24/7. You probably have whatever habits you have at home or before you meet your friends, depending on how often you meet them. So that we can take that quote and apply it to your habits. Show me your habits, and I'll show you your future. And this can be applied both ways. So if you have good habits, that will obviously give you a good life. If you have bad habits, that it will obviously lead to a bad life. So if you're, waking up super tired and, waking up late because maybe you're just a degenerate and you partied last night or whatever, and it's, you're constantly eating junk food, you're skipping training, you're drinking, smoking, whatever other bad habits that you can think of, right? You're doing all these degenerate things, you know, drinking alcohol, smoking weed, smoking cigarettes, doing jiu-jitsu, all this stuff. What does that do for you? It leads you, of course, to a mediocre body, a weakened mind, and a literal depressed spirit. So your bad habits, where do they lead you? Downhill. But in the flip side of things, let's say you got a good night rest because you weren't partying last night, and it's just not in your nature to do such things. So you wake up early, you train, you eat clean, you're, you know, mentally, you're reflective, you're reading, and you're doing a lot of great habits, you know, in the self-improvement space that people do. What does that lead to? And even if it's not perfect, at least, it's consistent. It will lead to an upward spiral and a stronger body, a sharper mind, and of course, an elevated spirit. Your results, they don't come from one big moment that you do or one big thing. Normally, that's not really the case. They come from what you do repeatedly, and that is, of course, your habits. So if you're doing certain habits every day, then of course, it's going to lead to you having a better life. And if you're doing worse for habits over time, leads you to a worse life. So if you're, for example, and I've made a longer video on this, on junk food, but for example, people think that eating junk food once in a while is bad. And if you've read that book, Compound Effect, I've actually read that book a while back. And basically the gist of that book, I'm not here to spoil it, but I'll just say the gist of that book is, and you can tell by the name, that, these small things lead to bigger and bigger effects in your life, whether that's good or bad. So if you're eating junk food, for example, now, eventually down the line, you'll either become fat, or even if you don't become fat, you'll get joint pain, you'll get arthritis, you'll get inflammations, you might even get a bunch of health issues. Now, if you're eating clean, the opposite is true. Your bones will feel stronger, your muscles will feel stronger. You'll have no inflammation, no joint pain. You'll feel relaxed. You'll feel so much stronger overall. And mentally, you'll feel fine, and you won't have any brain fog. So that's why it's really important to do, these are good habits consistently. Because again, it compounds effect into a bigger effect in your life. Now, the question is, you already have habits for watching this. Everyone has habits. Even normal people have habits. Normal people, like NPCs, basically, have habits. But the question is, the habits that you have, are they building your life or are they destroying your life? Every single person has habits. The question is, are yours intentional or are they accidental? Because if you don't design your habits, they'll actually basically be designed for you. Either it'll be by your own laziness, it could be distractions where you're just scrolling on your phone, right? And whatever it is, or by those people that are around you, like friends, family, or in the case society, right? So that can include, the school system, which again, I think a lot of people actually pick up bad habits from the school system, and it's not talked about enough. And this is like, people act like this doesn't happen, but it does. I don't know why people deny that this doesn't happen. And it's always the people that don't go to school here that deny it. That don't go. There's like people, they'll come from another country, they'll send their kids to school, and then they'll be surprised that their kids pick up bad habits. For example, like, oh, what is it called? Vape, for example, vape, which is basically like a smaller form, but just as bad, if not worse, of like hookah and smoking, basically. And people at like the age of like 13 or 16 are getting addicted to these vapes. Uh, right? How does this happen? Basically, what happens is that, and I know these stories because, again, this is what I've heard from kids themselves that telling me this. And not just kids, but like people that I know as well. Like they went to the high school system and they graduated. But basically, what happens is that, these vapes that they do, or it could be anything really. Even, like, honestly, dope peddling and drug, like, giving does happen at schools. People act like it doesn't happen. It does. Actually, the schools might be the breeding ground for it a lot of the times. But what basically happens is a lot of the time, it can be where they're, most of the time this happens in the bathrooms because it's very hard for a teacher to just come in and like to stop people. I mean, it makes sense. So they'll start smoking the vape in the bathroom, or they'll start doing whatever in the locker rooms. Because again, it's hard for teachers to come in and inspect that. And I think to a degree, there's some laws that protect violations of privacy or whatever. So again, it's very hard for them to confiscate such things. It's not impossible, but it is. It's a little harder to do it. The point is, that society does influence you. And not just the school system, even outside of the school system, when you graduate, or even if you don't graduate. Like, everyone is influenced by society, even the strongest of people, mentally strongest people. Even they are influenced. Even they conform to drinking occasionally, maybe not as often, but occasionally, or smoking, or whatever. And you see these copes all the time online. I see this on all the time. You see people saying it's not that bad once in a while, and you need to get that rid of you from your vocabulary that it's not bad once in a while, because it is. It is bad once in a while. The problem with addictions, and again, I made this a side point, but it will relate to the topic of what I'm talking about, habits, because what do you think addictions are? They are habits. They are just an extreme form of habits. No one would say you're addicted to success. I mean, yes, I know I think that's a lyric from a song. But no one would be like, that's a bad thing. It's only bad because you're addicted to, like, let's say, cocaine or some crazy drug, smoking, drinking. If you think about it, how do these addictions form? They literally form from habits. They literally form from habits. People do them consistently enough to the point that they become dependent on it. And when they become dependent on it, it is very hard to near impossible for them to give it up. It's not impossible, but very hard for them to give it up. And this is why I'm telling you, your habits are your fate. Because do you think anyone chose to have an addiction? Yes, to an extent, you could argue that it's a choice. But at the same time, if you were to ask this person, I want you to choose today to give it up. Most people will never be able to give it up today. That's what I mean. They might be able to give it up later down the line as they, you know, try to improve their habits, but no one could give it up today. Most people will not be able to give it up today. If you tell them give it up today, they could not. And whatever bad habits you have, maybe they're not as bad as, like, let's say, cocaine, but it could be, I don't know, like procrastination. That's a smaller one, but it's still pretty bad. Or maybe doom scrolling on your phone, which again technically is an addiction if we're being honest here. So the question is, are your habits intentional or are they accidental? Because these habits will either build your future or repeatedly cause your downfall. Every day, whatever you do. Even if all these addictions they form from most of the people, I would actually argue. Again, I don't have, research to back this up, but I do think that it's very true that most people who form these addictions are not necessarily the people who are doing it every day. Yes, they probably do it as well. But I think it's the people that cope and pretend like it's a bad thing. I mean, or it's not that bad of a thing, my bad. So these are the people. Oh, it's not that bad once in a while. I think those people are the more likely to become addicted. Because to them it's not that bad. You get what I mean? So it's like they don't think it's not that bad, so they'll keep doing it. Oh, I worked out today, so therefore I can eat junk food. Or, I worked out today, so I can, like, see. Or I had a hard day at work. Give me some, give me some, whatever it is. These are the people that are more likely to get addicted. I guarantee you, they're the people that are going to have a harder time to give it up. Because a person who at least admits to it being bad, even once in a while, has a higher chance of giving it up. Because mentally he knows that I have to give it up. Now it's going to be difficult for him as well, but he knows that he's not going to have this cope in his mind. And I made this point in a previous video. I believe the video is about cope. So, you can search up at Imam Balloons and then cope. And you'll probably find that video. Where your copes, I forgot what the title of the video is. I don't know how I forgot. But it's basically like your copes or something. Basically, it's the title of the video. Just type in cope. COPE. You'll find it. Point is, It's what very important to make sure that your habits are intentional and not accidental, and that it's just not you just following what everyone else is following. Just because you worked out today, or you went to, let's say, a job or whatever, that does not give you the right to slack off. So you're telling me you're gonna work out and you're gonna and now you justify it to yourself to eat junk food? What was the point of working out then? You could have just not worked out and just ate the junk food. Like, come on now. Although if you do want to give up junk food, I do recommend watching my video, How I Quit Junk Food Forever. Really, I do recommend you watch that video. And again, I see a lot of people cope with this other one where they say that if they work, that that somehow it justifies them not working out, or some other bad habit. Whether it's I get to drink more wine today because I had a hard day at work, and it's like you're telling me you worked super. And again, I'm not here to bash people that do jobs or whatever. At the same time, what I am saying is, if you're working really hard for someone else, which is what you're doing, super hard for someone else, you're basically spending 8 hours a day working really hard for someone else, and then you come home and you can't even work for yourself for an hour or two. Then it's like, is that not the definition of slavery? You're working super hard for someone else and their company, but not on even your own health. I'm not even talking about necessarily building your own business or anything like that. I know everyone, wants to be an entrepreneur, and I'm not saying that's bad. Of course, that's an amazing thing. At the same time, you're working really hard for someone else, but not yourself. I mean, I don't understand that mindset, honestly. Working really hard for someone else and not for yourself. Especially if we're being honest here, this person and this company that you're probably working for, it's basically keeping you away from your friends and your family members, and probably just, basically your life revolves around that. And you don't even have the audacity to at least just work on yourself for at least an hour or two in some way, shape, or form. I'm not even saying starting a business. I'm not even saying that. But like, you're telling me you can't just go do maybe half an hour or an hour or even 15 minutes exercise? Come on now. So this is why your habits are basically your identity. Your identity follows your habits, and vice versa. Your habit follows your identity. You don't become disciplined by just simply dreaming about it. Discipline, discipline is based upon your habits. And how do you develop that discipline? It's consistent. It's as consistent as you can make it. If you can, like for me recently, my goal is to do the splits. It's to become flexible enough to where I can do the splits. And it's been a goal of mine that, I was saying that I was going to do it, but I never got to it. But now I've been trying to stretch every single day, as much as I can. And, it's not easy, I'll admit. Like, it is pretty tough. But I know that this is what will help me. And of course, it'll get rid of a lot of stiffness that I have in my body, but also make me better as a martial artist. So, in order to become disciplined, you have to start acting disciplined every day. It's not just you don't develop discipline by accident. You might get motivation, which is different. Which is like that one day that you're really motivated and you hit your workout, and then the next days of the week you don't do anything. And I see this so often. It's like people will be in this like loop-de-loops of a cycle, right? Where they work out for a couple of days, maybe even a couple of months, and they give up. And they go back to working out, then they give up, and then they go back, and then they're in this cycle of like fat or unfit and fit, unfit, and then unfit. It's like, why would you torture yourself like that? You had this high dopamine right here where you were fit, and then you come crashing down to being unfit, and then you go back to being fit, and then unfit, and then fit, and then unfit. It's like you may as well just not have even started. You may as well just not have even started, bro. I honestly don't understand how someone could just be fit and then unfit, fit and unfit, fit, and this could be with a cycle of anything. Honestly, you should just stay to that, if I'm being honest. Why would you torture yourself like that? The problem is, and again, I had this one family member, I won't say names, or friends, or whatever. Family member friends, it's kind of the same thing. And he was telling me, oh, how long would it take for me to get abs, or like lose weight, or whatever his goal was? And I said, even you asking that question tells me that this is only going to be temporary. Like, fitness is a lifetime thing. It's not like, oh, I'm just going to do this for 6 months and then, like, it'll be all over. No, it's like, even after that 6 months, if you go back to your bad habits, you'll just go back to being unfit again. If I tell you, like, it's going to take, like, let's say it's going to take, like, 2 months, let's just say. So after those 2 months, what do you plan on doing? Do you plan on slacking off and then going back to being fat and unfit? Then you may as well just not have started. My point is, your habits are basically your lifestyle. And I talk about health on this channel a lot, and it's the importance of this and the importance of that, and this food and that food and sleep and whatnot. But the most important thing is lifestyle choices, aka habits. So whatever you train first, and then that's when the mindset will follow. It's hard to have a mindset if you don't, train first. If you don't train that thing, your mindset is just theoretical at that point. It's not real. It's fugazi. Habits are not just necessarily things that you do, of course. Of course they are. They're also how you embody. They embody who you literally become. And that's why it's important to have these habits, because they literally shape your identity. And, before we end this off, do your best to build a life that you're probably going to be proud of without, that cope. Again, watch that video that I was talking about. Your copes will destroy you. I believe that's what the title of the video was. But if you can build a life that you're proud of, one habit at a time, then, why not? Why not try to do that? Your life won't change until you change your habits. Of course, just try your best, start small, but start today and start now. And start with the intention of, I'm going to do this today. Not tomorrow, but today. As you're probably going to be watching this full video, start with that intention. And habits are kind of like the bricks of a house. You won't necessarily build the house today or a castle or whatever you're trying to build until you lay down the bricks, one brick at a time. That's how your habits are. And when you lay down enough bricks over time, that's when the house will be built and your future will be built in the same precise way. So that's why it's very intentional. You must be very intentional with your habits. Build wisely and watch it crumble. And you'll get to a point in your life where before it was like this super hard thing, and you thought that this was going to be impossible. This task would be impossible. And I have so many people that think, even now, that it's impossible to give up junk food. But it's not really that possible. It's actually very easy. I don't even consider it discipline anymore. It's just who I am now at this point. It's literally who I am at this point. People act like I'm, lying about about it because they can't fathom the fact that it's possible. But I said this in one of my stories. For most of human history, junk food and processed foods have never existed. So what I basically did is not that special, even though to the modern man it may seem that's amazing and you know unheard of. For most of human history, people have never done this. Have never eaten this stuff. Literal poison. People have never done it. So I am no different than those people in that sense, in this habit. Even though, of course, I love to glaze myself. Pause. And like basically boast about, oh look at this great thing that I did. But is it really great if most people in human history have never done it? I don't know. My point is though, you'll get to a stage where when you develop a good habit so good that it doesn't even feel like you're crying. Is my point. That's how good you could actually get to. It doesn't even feel like you're trying. It's just who you are. And that's what I want you guys to leave with, is that try your best to live a life that you'll be proud of, one habit at a time. But of course, do all that YouTube stuff, like and subscribe. And until next time, we'll meet again.